In my day, we used weasel grease in our beard and we were glad to have it.
Awesome.
Well, Adam, since you're our honored guest here, do you have any questions or any topics you want to throw out?
Well, as we discussed earlier, man, I'd really like to get, since we got this particular crew together, I'd really like to get your guys' perspective on the evolution of this beard community, not necessarily the community, but products and things like that. Since I began a couple years ago, some things maybe that you like the direction that it's gone, or some things that maybe you're not real hip on. If that kind of makes sense, like the evolution of where we come from, 2 years ago to where we are now, as far as the changes go.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot more companies on the market now. I think the blends and the feel in beard has gotten exponentially better, especially maybe over the past year. I mean, people are really coming up with some good blends, and some of those blends have kind of exotic ingredients, and some are just still the kind of the regular mainstream ingredients like not like you use in yours. But I mean, really, really great feeling beard oils comparatively, and the blends are more complex. Scents are still kind of all over the place. You kind of have to find what you like as far as that goes. The part that I may not be 100% behind, I'm all about an owner trying to do something to be different, to be creative, but then it's like they're throwing everything in. We're going to do CBD. No, we're going to do ostrich. No, we're going to do emu. We're going to try squalene. But I guess some of that's trial and error and see what works well. But it seems to be, at what point does it become like too many things in a blend? Anyway, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Andy, you got anything?
Well, two quick points. So obviously this is a business. This is how you feed your kids. This is how you pay your rent, buy your groceries. What I've noticed is there's been, if you go back 2 years ago, nobody in the community, nobody in our sphere that we talked to or talked about was doing the e-commerce thing. And now, 2 years later, what you're seeing is the companies that have really grown started seeking to increase their sales base outside of the community by doing Google ads, Facebook ads, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that it's going to get to that point where, like all things, whenever they first started making cars, there was like hundreds of different car companies. And slowly over time, you got down to your big four. And so somebody wanting to break into that was just pretty much out of luck. So, and I certainly think you have the skill, the acumen to be able to be one of those guys that survives whenever that happens. But I think that would be one way that you can grow. Now, on a completely different end of the spectrum, scent-wise, you're one of my dudes. I have told you that thousands of times. We don't need to gush on you anymore as far as that goes. One thing, though, that I have noticed is some of the earlier guys, and I'm thinking about guys that were out there before you came along, are still using that same carrier foundation. And what we've seen, now I'm certainly not talking about emu oil or ostrich oil or CBD or any of those kind of things, but just your base carrier blend. I think that has to evolve over time too. Not to say, and certainly we all know owners that they're changing every time the wind blows. I don't think that's necessarily beneficial, but as you kind of figure out what your niche is, what your target audience is, that might kind of guide you as far as what kind of carriers you want to add or subtract. And, I have quoted another owner many, many times and saying, listen, there's not a lot of research on this kind of stuff. There's not, you can get bits and pieces in peer-reviewed journals and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to do the hard, marketing on it and see what responds. See what bites and what doesn't bite. So those would be the two things that I would say have really changed as the beard industry has become more professional, so to speak.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't know how to answer this one because I find myself removing myself from the knowledge base of the beard product aspect and looking more towards how do we as a group of guys not just offer beard discussion but other things that can perhaps grow the community, I guess, on a more diverse level. So I'm looking to buy less and less these days, and looking to do other things. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer it, Brian. I feel I occupy this weird place in the community right now that I'm pulling away from the beard stuff actually more than everyone else.
So, Joe, let me ask you, man, how much of that is due to some of the stuff that we've seen, quote unquote, drama? How much of that has pushed you away?
At the beginning, it was all of it. It's the whole reason I quit reviewing. So, and then it just keeps, it's going to be this never ending cycle. We're always going to see it. The amount of live streams have helped exacerbate it. It used to be only a few lives out there, and now there are a ton. More stuff gets said live with owners now getting in the mix. And so there's just this environment that kind of breeds that, as well as certain individuals. So I've tried to remove myself from that aspect of it and say, what can we do as far as doing other things that are more pro rather than con? Because it seems all the con stuff comes with the beard product. You know what I mean? And all the BS that surrounds that for people wanting views or subs or whatever the heck it is. So I still keep a foot pretty well entrenched in that universe because I still do have a beard and still want to care for it. But I'm trying to look at what other things can we do that, that's why we do the Beards on Film live. It's why my content has shifted almost completely away from beard stuff. On occasion, I'll throw something out there like on Instagram, but how can we diversify, grow, and find new avenues to invest these energies perhaps?
That's great because, I mean, you think about 2 years ago, Adam, when you first started, I mean, really the community was just still in its infancy stage, really. There wasn't this place where people could meet and have these live streams and talk as much as what we're doing now. So lots of new guys come in, some guys have left. And then Joe brings up a great point of where do we go from here? You got this great amount of numbers. What do we do with it and kind of point it in the positive direction as much as we have the influence to do?
Right. Because that kind of goes to, what I was alluding to a little bit is the fact that at what point in time does so much start happening that everything gets diluted and it just runs together into this big blah mush thing?
Yeah.
Whether it be too many
there may be a pullback, like Andy was saying, like at some point there will be a pullback and you'll lose, 40% of people or 40% of the companies, I would imagine at some point. I just don't know what that's going to look like and when it happens.
Yeah. And I think that goes into that goes into exactly what I was talking about earlier, is the fact that that's why I'm building a team. That's why I consider everybody that purchases anything for me and supports Emily and I and Honyocker as a team, because I want them to understand that they're not just a dollar to me. And I think anybody that buys from me would understand that when I respond to their DMs at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and everything like that. So, that was kind of what I was wondering, because I'll tell you, like, you're right, Brian, when I first kicked it off a couple years ago, I mean, there weren't as many things going on as there are now, obviously. And, sometimes I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes I miss the good old boys, man. I do. Nothing against anybody out there now, because I want everybody to go for whatever they want to go for. Okay. I don't want to ever tell anybody, man, you're too late to the party. Man, if you want to try something, friggin' try it. You know what I mean? Because how can I not say that when I did the same exact thing? You know, even when I started 2 years ago, I felt I was behind the 8 ball with as many companies that were already established out there. But had I just said F it and not tried anymore, then I wouldn't have been able to experience the success I have to this point. So not that I want to dwindle everything down, but I just think sometimes it's interesting to see how much we all think that has affected the direction that things have gone.
Couple of things with that. Number one is I'm with you, Adam. I am not here to say to anyone, oh, we already got 19 of those dudes. Why are you doing it? You know, do your thing. It's a free market, right? It's the wild, wild west out there. No one is there are no parameters. However, and I get this from my classroom. Like I can tell after teaching 20 years, I constantly tweak my class every year, even if it's something tiny, even if it's just a little bit, because that's got to keep me interested as a teacher. Because if they see the passion from me, then they're riding the train with me. If I'm just the robot, okay, do this, do that, then they're not riding the train with me, right? And I take that sort of attitude and I say, okay, it's great that there are 10 lives bringing on company owners, talking about beard stuff. If that's your thing, outstanding. But at some point, there is an oversaturation. I mean, there's an oversaturation in beard companies, and that I cannot buy from nearly as many guys as I would like to. All right. And that's just a reality. It just is. It's not positive or negative. It's a reality. And I think we're hitting that point with content producers. And I would just like that when content producers come out there to have the self-awareness to say, how am I, even if it's just a little bit, how am I going to be different than all these other dudes? Right. And that goes back to, what is your goal? Is your goal to make money and become Dan C? Well, you're not going to. I'm sorry, you're not. I've said this before on this air and other places. You're just not. Different time, different place. Okay. If your goal is to just hang out with a bunch of dudes that have a like passion, awesome. Great. But there's a lot of other guys doing that. So how can you, not for your own success, but how can you offer something slightly different, right? Don't serve me a plate of cheese that's got 10 different slices of cheddar. All right. Give me a little bit, even if it's sharper cheddar, right? Even if it's mild, sharp, and extra sharp, there's still that little bit of difference there. And I think we older content creators, and Brian's a perfect example of this, have seen where they had to shift and move and go. And as a result, they have become Brian's longevity, but also he became a guy who I was tuning in daily when he started doing the beard advice stuff. I was always watching because that was very, very cool. And then when he started doing the grumpy old men, I may not have caught it before I was on it. I may not have caught every episode, but I'm like, okay, so there we are. Another branch off of the tree that's got a central theme, but is different. That's what I would really like to see. That's why I like this concept so much, is because we've been talking about a lot of beard stuff so far, but who knows, we may come on a grumpy old men and not touch beards at all ever, you know, and that we all have beards. We all know it. We're all known guys, you know, based on the community. There's our central point. Now, where do we branch off? And I would like to see more of that, so we can build something that isn't just the same platter of the same cheese.
I'm digging your vision, Joe. That's good stuff. That's
you have to, because I'm in the beard business, but how much beards can you talk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, like I just said, I run a beard product business, and I don't want to talk about beards all the time. Like if my main interest is beards, then I have a shallow life. I'm sorry. Like, you got to find other interests. And that's why I love watching Brian. I love Andy's intellectualness. I love your goofy stuff, like Joe. I mean, that's why you guys continue to be people that I relate with, because it's not just, how is your beard going to be affected if we go out in 10-degree weather? How's your beard going to be affected if the air's dry? I don't give a damn. Put some product in it and let's rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry to keep it simple, but I mean, it's true. So I think your point is very valid. You know, we as a beard community should be able to evolve into other things that we're interested in. It shouldn't have to constantly be about that. So point well taken, man.
Yeah. And there are a lot of similarities here. Go ahead, Andy, because we haven't heard you. But I just wanted to sneak in real quick. There's a lot of guys with a lot of similar passions that it should be as easy as, flipping over in the bed. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Yep.
No, I was going to say I absolutely agree with that, and in fact, I kind of Joe and I were making kind of the same point. The oversaturation reaching a tipping point, kind of that whole crash thing, leading to just a few big brands. And I certainly want you to be one of those guys. When you finally climb that mountain and you get wealthy, I want to be able to say, yeah, I remember Honyocker whenever he was still working at Gold's Gym. Yep.
Mhm.
But I absolutely agree with Joe. And for me, I tend to roll instead of specific interest, because I'm a person that spends my working days trying to find commonality with people. So yeah, I mean, what do I know I have in common with Adam? Just because I've watched him for a couple of years, we both like a lot of the same music. Both of us enjoy smoking a good pipe full of tobacco, but God knows it just takes up so much time. Who has the kind of time to do that all the time? All these other aspects that we have in common, is that because of our age, or just because we're all lumped together in the United States at the same time? So I completely get what you guys are saying. But I'm hoping that as this conversation today evolves, and as we go forward, for those people that are watching this, if this doesn't get edited out, because it might, we've been talking a lot behind the scenes about different things to talk about, because Adam is 100% correct. There are only so many informational videos that you can tolerate. It's like, oh, this particular beard carrier is whatever, or how does cold weather affect it, whatever. Yeah. And there's only so many different times you can see a different person trim their beard and walk away feeling inspired. I am grateful that I have never
Stay tuned next week for my live beard trim, guys. That we're gonna be doing.
Whoa, hold on. Now, yours is different. Yours is not, hey, this is how I trim my beard. This is how you do it. And certainly with your beard being so stylized compared to mine is just wild, man.
And that
Joe,
damn mustache, Brian. Dang.
Yeah.
I'm going back to school tomorrow. I have a feeling this may not last all week. I may cut it back. Because you wear a mask long enough, it goes right in your mouth after you get on.
Yeah, I see that, and that's why I can't let mine go, man. Because as soon as it starts getting in my mouth, can't handle that. And you drink something, and just.
There ain't no such thing as a good case of hemorrhoids.